we are discussing the 18th meeting of the Secretaries of the Security Councils of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which was held in the national capital yesterday, and where India's National Security Advisor also spoke. He spoke specifically also on terror financing and called upon all member countries to support relevant resolutions of the UN Security Charter in this aspect. And he also said that international connectivity projects should respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the nations. Master Sajjanhar, when you see these remarks, which are quite clear and which are very clearly outline India's stand on international connectivity, how much do you think this message is going out to countries like China, where one hopes that this will be received?
I think when we are talking about the issue both of terrorism and connectivity that you have mentioned, I think these issues, these aspects are relevant and valid not only for India, but for the whole world. You know, for instance, if we speak about terrorism, terrorism is a scourge, it's a menace that afflicts the whole world. It is not India only. India, of course, has been affected by it for more than 3 decades, principally in terms of the cross-border terrorism that we have been subjected to. But during that period, in the initial decade or so, the world was not willing to look at it very seriously or focus on it. They would say that this is a bilateral issue between India and Pakistan, so you need to talk, you need to discuss, and you need to resolve this matter. But I think after 9/11 attacks, the seriousness, the severity of this issue has been brought up in front of the whole world, and we have seen in different parts of the world now these terrorist attacks taking place, and the whole world really needs to get together. The second issue that you mentioned is of connectivity projects. And this, you would recall, India has been speaking about this right from the very beginning, when the first idea of, let's say, the Belt and Road Initiative, what was earlier known as the One Belt, One Road project is concerned, when that was launched in 2013 during the visit of the Chinese President Xi Jinping, first to Kazakhstan on the overland route and then the maritime route during his visit to Indonesia. So right from that time, and when the first BRI forum was organized in 2017, India has been saying that all countries concerned, their concurrence should be taken. And of course, the territorial integrity and sovereignty of countries should be respected. At that time, not very many countries had again supported or paid much attention to what India was saying, but increasingly, as we have seen the Belt Road Initiative projects, whether in Asia or in Africa or in Latin America, they have been getting problematic, and they have been resulting in huge debts as far as the host countries, the so-called beneficiary countries, are concerned. So I think the world is waking up to these challenges. So I think as far as the world is concerned, it recognizes that the territorial integrity and sovereignty of all countries should be respected and should be kept in mind. But whether this message will be taken on board by China, which launched the BRI initiative, I have my doubts, very serious doubts, because I think developing countries want money, want investment for infrastructure projects. And they don't want any questions to be asked, and that is what China is prepared to do. But of course, we've seen these loans, and they create a lot of difficulty and problems for the host receiving countries.
Master Sajjanhar, as you pointed out, and we also have Mr. Doval's comments yesterday, where he drew attention to the issue of cross-border terrorism and said, any act of terrorism, regardless of its motivation, is unjustifiable. It is important, therefore, for all countries to fulfill the obligations enshrined in relevant counter-terrorism cooperation protocols, including the UNSC resolutions 1267, 1373 and successor resolutions. A lot of analysts have pointed out that his comments on adhering to the UNSC resolution is also significant, because India is actually trying to hint at the roadblocks that it has encountered in its campaign against global terrorism, because every time at the UN, India tries to designate a terrorist as a global terrorist, the obstruction comes from China. Do you feel that the world is finally realizing that one has to move beyond talk and these resolutions have to be adhered to, and also China's continuous obstructions have to give way?
No, you're very right, Simran. I think the world has realized for quite some time. And that is why you would recall that, when Masood Azhar was to be designated as an international terrorist under the UN Security Council Resolution 1267, it took India about 10 years to get him designated as such. The whole exercise started in 2009 when China put a technical hold on it. And then after that, it was in 2015, 2018. Ultimately, in 2019, India was successful in getting Masood Azhar also designated as an international terrorist. But you would again recall that happened when there were countries like the United States, like France, which threatened China that they would raise the matter in the full UN Security Council, because the 1267 committee is a much just smaller committee comparatively. And they would ask for an explanation from China as to what are the reasons why it was not amenable, why it was not willing to put Masood Azhar in the international terrorist category. And it was because of this pushback from some of these other permanent members of the UN Security Council that China relented and agreed to designate Masood Azhar. Similar has been the case with some of the other terrorists more recently. And what we see is that China is politicizing this whole exercise. I think the whole world has realized that terrorism is an issue which afflicts the whole world. I think China is in the UN Security Council possibly the only country which has been playing politics because it wants to protect Pakistan. And as we know, about 2/3 of the terrorists which are designated under 1267, they come from Pakistan. But because of this iron brother relationship that China claims with Pakistan, so it does not want to let go of it. It wants to protect it under all circumstances. And that is why China has been laying roadblocks in terms of putting technical holds. The organizer, Jaish-e-Mohammed JEM, was put as a terrorist organization by the United Nations Security Council way back in 2002. But Masood Azhar, who is heading that particular organization, it took us about 10 years, as I mentioned, to bring it on board as far as an international terrorist is concerned. So we have tried to tell China, number one, that terrorism is an issue that afflicts all countries, so there should not be any politics that should be played. And secondly, it does not, as far as credibility and standing and reputation of China is concerned, in terms of its being in support of the international community fighting against terrorism, it doesn't stand it in good stead. That it is seen to be protecting confirmed terrorists without any viable explanation. And all the information is usually provided, but because of its political stance to support Pakistan, China puts these obstacles. But I think it is getting increasingly cornered, and we see that increasingly the technical holds that it puts, it is forced to retract from them much sooner, much earlier than was used to be the case. Like Masood Azhar, it was 10 years. In some of the more recent cases, it is in 2 years or 1 year that China has been forced to remove these technical holds.
And in the coming days, we will continue our discussions on the SCO. And India is holding the presidency of SCO this year. And we will also be hosting the summit later this year. And we will continue our discussions on all issues related with SCO. With these comments, we bring today's discussion to an end. Thank you.
Thank you.